Okay, so I got this book, Hypatia. It's upside down. Hypatia Reborn. Essays in Feminist Philosophy. And for those who don't know, Hypatia was a Greek. Was it Greek? No, not Greek. It was Hypatia of Alexandria. So the city of Alexandria, which was in like ancient Egypt. And she was born around 360 AD. And she studied Neo Neoplatonic or Neoplated. She was a Neoplatist, and she had her education in Athens in Italy, which which she later returned to Alexandria and had a whole school there. Was very renowned, very close to the governor. The governor, at the time, Christianity had just become the state religion, and the governor wasn't going to church, and instead he was going to learn from her school during church hours, and so the bishop, the newly appointed bishop at that time, sent an angry mob to mutilate her body and murder her in the streets. And she was a pagan herself, but she taught multiple religions, including Christianity. And so, yeah, they came and murdered her. Then the governor didn't like that and kind of went to war with the church a little. And then later the city fell because the college was like its number one source of income, and then the Arabs were at war, and then there was a split of the Roman Empire and everything. So then the city fell. So it was a very bad political move by the bishop because he literally just destroyed a whole city by murdering one girl because he didn't like what she taught. So didn't like competition. It's all about that money. Can't have the governor going to somebody else instead of us. No. Anyways. Gotta have sweet tea. Anyways. So this book is actually rather interesting. It has some quite funny things in it. And this is one of them. So I'm going to read from this. It's on page 236. I'm going to read this part right here. The lighting is so bad. And watch this. Feminine sex desire is the soft throbbing of a mollusk, whereas a man is impetuous. Woman is only, whereas a man is impetuous. Woman is only impatient. Her expectation can become ardent without ceasing to be passive. Man dives upon his prey like the eagle and the hawk. Woman lies in wait like the carnivorous plant, the bog, in which insects and children are swallowed up. She is absorption, suction, humus, pitch, and glue. A passive influx vaguely feels herself to be. So yeah. Women are apparently devious. That's what I read here. And men are apparently kind of like go ho, run into the bullets flying at you, which is not always the best option. But I don't know. I'm just reading essays in women's philosophy. Okay, that's all I know. But it's very interesting things because I do agree with that. I do agree that that is more of a feminine trait to be slow and like a carnivorous plant, like that example. But I mean, I think that that there are men who can also show feministic traits as well. And so when you have men like, for instance, like with the Roman Empire and everything, like going behind each other's backs and all lying and manipulating it, that's a feminine trait. I don't mean that in any kind of negative way, but and sometimes it's useful. I mean, it's not. I'm not because it's not always necessarily bad. Because, for instance, if you want to talk about a masculine trait where you're hitting problems head on, if you just walk up and murder somebody because you didn't, because you had some kind of problem with them or they something, that's bad because that's why we call it murder. But if you went up to somebody and you killed them for some kind of justice, like a execution or whatever. We call that, justice or manslaughter or whatever the case might be, and we don't call it murder. Did not give it negative because the situation wasn't a negative connotation. So, and it works the same way with having vipers and stuff. Because sometimes if your kid, I mean, for instance, if you tell your, well, I don't want to go into that during Christmas time, but if you tell your kid that Santa's real, is that, I mean, that's kind of a lie, but not really though, because technically you're Santa. So the idea is truthful, but the lie is saying it's some dude in the North Pole. But you do it to give your kids joy. And there was something else. There's a lot of stuff about sex in here for some reason. I don't know why feminism revolves around sex. I guess women want to have. Whoever wrote this, apparently, I don't know. Well, French feminism is also in here. This is a very interesting book. Something else in here of the Beauvoir in 1952. Male sexual feeling rises like an arrow. When it reaches a certain height or threshold, it is fulfilled and dies abruptly in the orgasm. Feminine enjoyment radiates through the whole body. It is not always concentrated in the genital organs because no definite term is set. Woman's sex feeling extends towards infinity. I'm not a woman. I don't know what sex for a woman feels like, but someone's trying to describe it. There's something in here that was really good that I wanted to read. And it has lesbian identity in here. And the part that I was wanting to read from, because it said, because like a lot of people say like, oh, being gay is not a choice, or being a lesbian is not a choice, or you don't choose who you love. But in here, out of feminists' mouths, and this is, when was this book made? This book's from the 90s. I'm not exactly sure. I think it's 1990 was when this book was made. And they said that it was a choice, that they choose to be lesbians. If I can find that. Oh, the woman who turns lesbian because, well, this is one of them. The woman who turns lesbian because she haughtily declines male domination is often pleased to find the same proud Amazon in another. The common feeling that united them against the privileged castle enabled each to admire in a friend, the impressive being whom she idolized in herself. In their mutual embraces, each was at once a man and woman, and each enchanted with the other's androgynous qualities. So, essentially what it was getting at in here is that women are pushed from birth whenever you're growing up, because there's so many religions that say that women have to be submissive to men, or feminists have to be submissive to the masculine. And everything says that you can't choose to be anything else, and that the whole point of the lesbian identity is that they fall in love with the fact that they have found another woman that doesn't want to be submissive to men. And so they rejoice in that together. But then also, it says right here, as a matter of fact, the lesbian is no more an undeveloped woman than a superior one. Homosexuality can be for woman a mode of flight from her situation or a way of accepting it. The great mistake of psychoanalysis is through moralistic conformity to regard it as never other than an inauthentic attitude. And there's also another one. This unlikeness, which too often isolates them because becomes the source of their enchantment when they do unite. The woman see in the man's virile impetuosity the reverse aspect of the passive fever that burns within her. The man's potency reflects the power she exercises on him. This life engorged organ belongs to her, as her smile belongs to the man who floods her with pleasure. All the treasures of virility, of femininity, reflect each other, and thus they form an ever shifting and ecstasy unity. So it's kind of interesting that whoever is writing this essay in feminist philosophy is basically saying that a man and woman should be together, and that the reason why women and women are together is because they don't want to submit to men, and then they find that attractive, and the other one that doesn't want to submit to men. That's kind of what I'm taking away from it, from just like a very dumbed down point of view. And maybe there's more to it. I'm still reading this. But naturalism and dualism in Bouvier's thought, one of it in here was, even when she is willing or provocative, it is unquestionably the male who takes the female. She is taken. In this penetration, her inwardness is violated. She is like an enclosure broken into. His domination is expressed in the very posture of copulation. In almost all animals, the male is on the female. Thus, though the female plays a fundamentally active role in procreation, she submits to the coition which invades her individually and introduces an alien element through penetration and internal fertilization. These and other passages suggest Beauvoir has fallen into a naturalist presupposition that mere description of the biological differences between men and women imply negative or positive values of sexed body in relation to the distinctive human goal of transcendence. Is the possibility of setting and achieving individual projects. The world Brewer tries to avoid this charge by speaking of human bodies as mere instruments whose ultimate value rests on values defined by human-made economic, political, and social order. Ultimately, however, I would argue that Brewer does succumb to a naturalist bias by assuming that biology has functions which can be ascertained and described independent of human values. Thus, she persists in describing men's sexual selves as more privileged because of their luck in having aggressive rather than the passive biological role. Consider consider these two quotes from chapter 14, sexual initiation. For men, erotic pleasure is objective desire being directed toward another person. Erection is the expression of this need with penis, hands, mouth. With his whole body, a man reaches out towards his partner, but he himself remains at the center of this activity, being on the whole the subject opposed to the objects receives and instruments, and he manipulates the feminine flesh. For flesh is for him a prey. The privileged position of a man comes from the integration of his biological aggressive role with his social function as a leader master, as accounts of his social functions social function, that the psychological differences take on all their significance. So basically, because it's basically just saying, like, because men have this taking role of the woman, that we portray that into society, so that so basically that biology dictates our social structure, and which, yeah, it's true, because it's like that in all religions, that biology. So, for instance, when you read the Bible, and you read the story of Adam and Eve, what does it say? Eve was talked about the tree of life, that they ate of the tree of life, and the fruit was good. And then you go on later in the Bible, and whenever God's talking to these people, he's like, oh, when he tells the women that they're going to have children, he says, oh, you'll bear many fruit, or you'll that the woman's the tree of life, and all of this stuff. But then with the man, it says that whenever he talks about the man having kids, he talks about spreading their seed. And that that it's fertilization, and the gardener, and it uses all of these terms. So it uses the terms of flowering, and how we create plant life with human biology, and then it becomes a social structure in the religion based off of biology or science. So it's a representation of what we already know. And now that we are more intellectual beings than what we were way back when, that, a lot of women do not want to live by that standard anymore, and they want to act instead of react. And I don't really see a problem with that, because everybody has their own difference. Everyone has their own perspectives and their personal preferences and everything. So, if a woman wants to lead a relationship and she finds a man that doesn't have a problem with her leading a relationship, finds that attractive, who is anyone to say that those two can't be together and do their relationship how they see fit? If the relationship doesn't work, it doesn't work. But, if they do it and they find a way to make it work, because there's plenty of relationships where you have men who don't speak, who play more of the feminine role in the relationship, and then the people are still together their whole life, and then people come in and try to say, oh, why do you let her talk to you like that? Why do you let her do this? You're supposed to be the man, and blah, 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 blah. And they don't have a problem with the life they're living, and the woman doesn't have a problem with the life they're living, but everybody tries to make them have a problem with the life they're living. Instead, we should all just mind our own business. But there's nothing wrong with preaching your ideas to somebody. Where it comes wrong is when you start trying to force your will onto others. Like, so you see a lot of times, you'll see like pastors or other religious people, they go to university and they're preaching, and people come around them and challenge them or whatever. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. People do that. That's kind of the whole. It's kind of the whole point of the First Amendment. And if you disagree with it, then you disagree with it. Say what you think and defend what you think in a proper way, and move on. I mean, if you have a legitimate defense to your ideas and someone else their ideas and they have a legitimate defense and y'all stalemate, the people who are around who heard you, they'll make their decision. You can't force someone to believe what you believe. That doesn't exist because, for instance, if somebody pointed a gun to my head, told me I'm going to be a Muslim or he's going to shoot me, that doesn't make me a Muslim. Like, and that's with any kind of religion or any kind of idea. If you give me an ultimatum and I'm only doing the thing because of the ultimatum, as soon as the ultimatum's gone, I'll go back to what I actually believe. It's kind of, for instance, if you use it kind of in a relationship wise, like a lot of people, I was dating a girl one time and she said, we had broken up and she said to another guy, hey, I don't really want a relationship right now. And his reply to her was, okay, that's fine, but are you going to have sex with other people? And she said, yes. And he got mad and started throwing stuff and everything, calling her all kinds of names. What's the point of that? Say, you just need to leave. Because say you scared her there. She's like, oh, okay, I won't have sex with anybody. And she's with you because she's terrified of you. All right. What have you accomplished there? She doesn't love you. She's there because you scared the crap out of her. So what have you gained? Because as soon as something comes up, you don't have loyalty. So as soon as something happens where you're in danger, that's where you get those scenarios where it's like, oh, I'm about to fall off a cliff, grab my hand so I don't fall. And then they step on the one hand that you have there and then you fall to your death. That's the end result of that because they don't love you. They're not loyal to you. You knew that, and instead you tried to force them to be with you. And as soon as they were able to find a way out of it, they got out of it. So, it's always when it comes to stuff like that, it's always on you. So, for instance, you're always everybody's always like, oh, well, this person did this. They treated me like crap for 5 years or whatever. You let them. It's your fault. No one treated you like crap for 5 years. You stayed getting treated like crap for 5 years. If you weren't getting what you wanted, then why were you there? You chose to be there. Now, you might have thought, okay, I think he's working on himself. He's going to change, or I think she's working on herself. They're going to change. That's one thing. But at a certain point, when you're maybe it clicks in your head of like, okay, well, I'm not. I don't think that they're actually serious, or I don't think that things are ever going to change, or or at some point you got to sit back and you got to weigh your options. What's better for me? For instance, for me is I'm gonna be honest. I would rather be with a girl. If I was with someone and I've done this before, if I'm with someone and I really like their personality and everything, and you know they have a problem where if they have any kind of problems, I accept their problems and be with it because I would rather be with someone I like to be around and accept their problems that they have rather than be with somebody I don't like and still have problems with them. And I have a phone call, so I'm going to end this stream. That's where I'm at with this stuff.